You turn off the bathroom light at night, and suddenly you're speed walking to your bed like something's chasing you. You're a grown adult, you pay taxes, you've watched actual horror movies and laughed at them, and yet somehow 10 feet of dark hallway still turns you into an Olympic sprinter. Here's the weird part. That's not you being childish. That's not a habit you never grew out of. That reaction is a survival system that is roughly 1,000,000 years old, and by pretty much every measure, it is still working exactly the way it was built to. And the reason you're scared isn't monsters, it's math. Let's back up for a second. For basically all of human history, we're talking hundreds of thousands of years, there was no light switch, no street lamp, no phone flashlight. When the sun went down, it just went down. Completely. And the world you knew during the day, the one you could see and predict and control, turned into something you couldn't read at all. Let's start with the disadvantage. Here's something you don't think about because you've never needed to. You are a daytime animal. Your eyes are built for daylight and pretty much nothing else. Cats, owls, and most of the animals that used to hunt humans have eyes packed with light-sensitive cells built for low light, plus a reflective layer behind the retina that basically gives them night vision goggles for free. You don't have that at all. So put it this way, evolution handed you a Ferrari and then took away the headlights. You're fast, you're smart, you can problem solve your way out of almost anything, but the second the lights go out, none of that matters because you can't see the thing that's about to matter most.
And that brings us to the real problem. For most of human history, nighttime wasn't just dark, it was somebody else's shift. A lot of the animals hunting early humans, big cats, hyenas, other predators built for the dark, did their best work after sunset, specifically because that's when humans were at their weakest. Picture an early human standing in an open field at night. No weapon that helps much in the dark, no way to see 20 feet ahead, and somewhere out there, something with far better eyes than yours is watching you and can already tell exactly where you are. That's not a scary story. That was Tuesday. So if you were an early human and you felt a little uneasy the moment the sun dropped and you decided to stay close to camp instead of wandering off to see what that noise was, congratulations, you just out-survived the guy who didn't. But then something changed everything. You'd assume fire showed up way later than it did, like cavemen finally figured it out after a few 100,000 years of getting eaten late. But archaeologists working in a place called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa found something that pushes this timeline back further than almost anyone expected. Evidence there shows early humans were bringing fire into that cave as far back as somewhere between 1 million and possibly 1.79 million years ago. Let that sink in for a second. Before most of what we'd even recognize as human existed, someone already figured out how to drag a burning branch back to where they slept and keep it going. And that one move might be the single biggest cheat code in human history. Fire didn't just cook food. Fire took the dark, the one environment where humans had zero advantage, and gave them back their eyes. Predators that relied on darkness to hunt suddenly had a wall of light they didn't want to cross. Whoever kept that fire burning through the night usually made it to morning. Whoever let it go out didn't get to complain about it later. So for the first time in human history, darkness had a weakness, and humans found it, almost by accident.
Okay, so here's the obvious question. Fire's been around for over 1,000,000 years. We've had electricity for over a century. So why do you still hesitate before turning off the light? This is where it gets kind of brilliant, honestly. Your brain isn't running on logic here. It's running on something researchers call error management. Basically, your brain is wired to make the safest wrong guess, not the smartest right one. Think about the math. If you feel scared in the dark and there's nothing there, worst case, you feel silly for 10 seconds and lose a little sleep. But if you feel totally calm in the dark and something actually is there, that mistake could end you. So your brain, over millions of years, made a permanent decision. It would rather be wrong and embarrassed 1,000 times than right and dead even once. That's not anxiety. That's an incredibly well-negotiated insurance policy. And it turns out, not all fears are created equal. Back in 1971, a psychologist named Martin Seligman published research suggesting the human brain doesn't learn every fear the same way. Some fears, like darkness, heights, snakes, get picked up almost instantly, sometimes after a single bad moment, way faster than something totally random, like being scared of, say, spreadsheets. In other words, nobody had to sit you down and explain that the dark might be dangerous. That fear didn't need a lesson plan. It came pre-installed because the humans who needed to be taught that lesson the hard way usually didn't survive long enough to teach anyone else. But here's the part that genuinely shouldn't make sense and somehow does. Researchers looking into childhood fears found a pattern that's almost too weirdly specific to be a coincidence. Women were more likely to remember being scared as kids of something underneath the bed. Men were more likely to remember the fear coming from the side, near a door or a window.
And the theory tracks back to something ancient. If early humans slept up in trees for safety, the main threat to someone up there, say a leopard or something climbing from below, would attack from underneath. Someone sleeping at ground level, on the other hand, would be more exposed to threats approaching from the side. So somehow, tens of thousands of years later, your specific childhood nightmare might have a floor plan. That's not a fear you invented, that's a fear you inherited, down to the direction it comes from. Here's the twist to close it out. You'd think that with streetlights, phones, and 24-hour lighting everywhere, this fear should be fading out. But some researchers argue the opposite is happening. Because of all our artificial light, most people today almost never experience real, total darkness, the kind ancestors lived in every single night. And when you're not used to something, it hits harder when it shows up. So when the power goes out, or you're camping somewhere with zero light pollution, that ancient alarm goes off louder than it would have a few thousand years ago, simply because you're rusty at handling it. We didn't outgrow the fear of the dark. We just made the dark rare enough that it feels foreign again. So next time you're speed walking past a dark hallway at 30 years old, don't laugh it off as childish. That's not weakness. That's a million-year-old alarm system, built by every single ancestor who made it through the night before you, still doing its job. And somewhere out there, tonight, it's still running on you.